Thank you, Stuart, and thank you for the NRF for all your support for everything we do. They're big supporters of our biobank and our team who coordinates a lot of that, sharing tissues and data with colleagues around the world. I'm not going to touch too much on biobanking because who really wants to talk about biobanking? It's not that exciting. So I'll talk about some of the things that we're doing in the clinic and in the labs as a team. Let's do this one. Professional disclosures, as I have to, none of this is really relevant to the discussion that we're having today. So I'm going to talk about some of the things that have led us to where we're going and what we've done, and how we can learn about those things, as well as some very specific projects. I don't think I'm touching on Proton. I think I didn't update that slide. But, one of the big things that I'm really exceptionally keen to keep driving is the idea of survivorship. We talk about survival and trying to improve it for children and adults with brain cancer because it's such a bad disease. But with now 70% of all children surviving their primary brain tumor of childhood, we need to be thinking more about the survival of those kids and what it looks like post. And so I always come back to this, this quote, which is every brain tumor patient deserves not just more years in their life, but more life in their years, which is really driving some of our major projects that we're undertaking right now. Those kids who have treatment for brain tumors can be widely affected in terms of their behaviors, their neurocognitive outcomes. They have complications from their primary surgery and their radiation possibly. They have hormonal issues and really have some deleterious effects, not only on their physical health, but their mental health as well. And so we need to be finding better ways to be treating these. We know that kids treated with CNS radiation in particular, which is a main cog of our malignant tumor treatments, have ongoing negative effects with long-term morbidities of 7 times those of other children treated. And that can include other cancers, as well as all these other issues that we have. Yeah, in particular are the neurocognitive effects. The younger you are irradiated and the more brain that you have irradiated, the greater the effects that you have on a developing brain. And what this means is over time, not only do you have effects on your endocrine system, but you also have effects on your capacity to live life. And we know that in 3 of 5 survivors of childhood tumors who've needed irradiation, they do not reach functional independence in adulthood. And so we need to be designing better treatments in terms of their outcomes. Our biobank, as I said, is funded partially by the NRF, and we thank them for that. We have thousands of samples now from many of our patients who've been joining up since I came here, as well as some retrospective access to tumors that we've been sharing with patients around the world. But what this allows us to do, because there's one Centre for Children's Cancer in South Australia, is really have a look at a population perspective on the outcomes of these kids. And so what we're doing is this project which we call JELLY, which is using genomics and epigenomics to predict late effects. What we can do is take these tissues and run them through the kind of current standard of care in terms of diagnosis with whole genome sequencing as well as methylation profiling, and get a real sense of the genomic milieu of the patients that they come in. We then can pair their patient information, not only from their clinical records of what they had for their treatment, but long-term data linkage. South Australia has been collecting patient data through Medicare, PDS, birth, deaths, and marriages, NAPLAN scores. All of these different things are publicly available data that with the proper ethics and working through a process, you can actually put together. And so now we can, over time, predict out in what patients had and the treatments they had and the genomics within those tumors, which often underlies their own patient genomics, look for commonalities of issues that they have, whether that's hearing impairment, worse response to radiation therapy, second cancer risk. All of these types of things are things we can then put together to prospectively then inform the next generation of studies on better ways to treat. And Professor Jason Pohl is doing this data linkage for us, and my team, led by Norman Petten and Cathal King, are driving the genomics and epigenomics. So hopefully we'll see some nice data from this in the next little while to really tell us about South Australian survivorship. So I'm going to touch now on something that's brand new that I thought people here might like to know about, and that's what I think could be a real hope for a change in brain tumor research. This is based on a study that came out several years ago in pancreatic cancer. People say, well, why pancreatic cancer? It has nothing to do with brain tumors. Well, pancreatic cancers, in terms of the genomics of the tumor and the kind of milieu of the tumor, is very similar to pediatric cancer in that it's very quiet. There's not a lot of changes in adult pediatric or pancreatic cancer. But this paper came out a couple of years ago testing what's known as a personalised vaccine, where the patient's tumor is sequenced and you predict out what the immune system might be able to notice. And in patients who got a response, I draw your attention to those top lines in red. So the patients who actually got a response to a vaccine actually did exceptionally well. And from my perspective, if you know pancreatic cancer and advanced pancreatic cancer, that's a miracle. Okay? We never see this in pancreatic cancer. And not only did it happen, it was sustained. So this is the follow-up paper. So in those patients who had responses, in the 16 patients, those who did respond, they continued to thrive with markedly better improvement. So I saw this paper a couple of years ago with my colleague Brandon Wainwright up in Queensland, and we basically called each other almost at the same time and said, have you seen this? Do we want to try this in kids? And the answer is yes, we did. So we put together a team, we sought funding, and we worked with our colleagues nationally through the Zero Cancer Childhood program, which is a diagnostics platform that does our whole genome sequencing and RNA-seq and methylation for every child with brain tumors across the country, and now all cancers. We have a pathway that's set up by our colleagues at QIMRB that can predict out neoantigens as well as tumor-associated antigens. We can design a vaccine, and through our commercial partners, Providence Therapeutics, design vaccines that we can then give to children. This is now an NRF funded project. We are now ethically approved, and we will open and enroll our first patient probably in the next 6 weeks. So I'm hoping here in South Australia will be the first patient. We're gonna target the bad one. So diffuse midline glioma is the worst killer of children. We talk about glioblastoma being a bad disease. I don't talk about survival with GBM, with DMG. GBM, you still have those talks a little bit, that first diagnosis. In ours, you don't. And so we're going to target those as the first ones, as well as other kids with relapsed, refractory, very high-risk brain tumors. And our hope is we're going to see something like the pancreatic patients, and we're going to see some signals that we can then build off of with other emerging technologies like CARs, like other checkpoint inhibitors, like other medicines, that we can really take the next steps to making, relapsed, refractory, and high-risk disease a thing of the past for kids. I want to just take another moment just to really highlight and thank everyone who contributes to all the work happening in South Australia and around the country. Without the basic research and the things that are happening here on the ground floor, the clinical research that we do nationally and internationally cannot happen. It's really a yin and a yang. This is the survival curve for leukemia, all right? And our most recent studies, there's one on top of that actually that's even higher. But I like this figure because it goes through the decades and all the different studies that have been performed over the years. I think we are about to take the jump, and we're going to start moving forward with survival of brain cancer like we did with leukemia over the last many years. So fingers crossed, watch this space in the next 2 years. Thank you to my team. Thank you to everybody here in South Australia who's doing hard work, and to all of our sponsors nationally. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jordan. Any questions for Jordan?
Thank you, Jordan. With the update for paediatric NeoVax, and rightly so for children first, and then is there a consideration for progression to all adults?
So I only look after children.
Okay.
And I look after young adults, so this study's open to 25 for young adults with pediatric cancer. Adult physicians would have to go about this. This is a very expensive trial. You know, the cost of the sequencing, we have that covered by the government through the Zero program. To do that in the adult setting would be exorbitant. We then also have our commercial sponsors who are very focused on pediatric disease right now. They have a precursor vaccine, which is called a tumor-associated antigen. It's not personalized. It's not based on the patient's tumor, but it's based on tumours. That's a vaccine called PTX-102 that's entering phase 1/2 studies. It'll open, I think it's opening in Princess Margaret in Canada shortly. Do I think that it's possible down the road? Yes. So the pancreatic cancer one, it's a commercially sponsored study that finished the phase 2 study. It was open, I want to say, at about 40 sites internationally. So they're out there, they're available. I'm not aware of anybody doing it in adult brain cancer yet. But this is emerging tech. It's very expensive, but I do think there's an opportunity for it. Certainly, I would be shocked if we see responses and we start seeing things happening. I'd be shocked if somebody doesn't copy my protocol. Like, call me up and say, can we just cut and paste? Thank you very much.
Wasn't touched on, but in a non-media response, protein profile update.
Yeah, I thought I'd taken that bit out because I didn't want to talk about it, because I talk about it a lot. Look, you know, we've got this wonderful building that's built. We've got a bunker that's able to take machines. The contract fell apart with the original vendor. Governments will take their time, and these are expensive things, and there's been cost overruns because of contracts falling apart. My hope is that from the minister's roundtable in pediatrics last year, he assured families it was coming, that it will be in Adelaide. It's just a matter of sorting that out. I continue to ask for those meetings. I in fact sent an email this morning because my weekly request to see the minister had not been responded to again, so I will do it again, as well as with the new state government, charge that out. We have a capacity to put them in. They can be put in with different machines. It just needs drive and will of government to do that. Given the cost of the current medical treatment overseas programs, I am well aware, and I'll say it publicly, the current cost to send children overseas and adults, with over 55 patients sent this financial year and growing, it's gone up dramatically, is currently over $20 million US a year. That means that that money is no longer on Australian shores and could have been used to run the service up the road. The other thing is the minister's been very clear about the NDIS and the cost overruns for the National Disability Service. The estimated cost for a patient who cannot be looked after themselves from a brain tumor, whether it's through the tumor cause, the resection to get the tumor out, the radiation effect, whatever the reason is, the average disability for a brain injured patient of the NDIS is somewhere between $150,000 and $250,000 a year. And if we can cut those numbers because they're getting better radiation in half, the number of patients you would have within 10 years coming off the NDIS, never mind their incomes as now functional adults, actually more than pays for the machines within 10 years. The cost economics of this as a physician is simple. I don't get it, I don't understand, and I'm publicly saying it, and if there's media here, please quote me. I'm very happy to continue to talk to the ministers. because I don't quite understand what the delays are, other than politics.